Mr O'Dowd, it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. When a natural bounty is discovered, it's only right that a nation and its people should benefit from it, not simply corporations and investors. The fruits of land and sea should benefit all, not just the few. Scotland has been fortunate, blessed firstly with North Sea oil and now renewable energy, in particular offshore wind, a further natural resource offering great opportunities and of such an extent that it should be transformative, as even a recent Prime Minister stated, the Saudi Arabia of wind. Other nations have shown what can and should be done. Scotland discovered oil at the same time as Norway. Now Scots can only look with envy, not just at the standard of living in their Nordic counterpart, but at the Norwegian oil fund, now valued at $1.4 trillion, and it's suggested that it owns an average of 1.5% of every listed company in the world. British National Oil Corporation sold off, whilst Equinor, owned by the Norwegian state, goes from strength to strength. Funds which should have seen Scotland bloom, instead used by Thatcher to smash organised labour and by New Labour to wage illegal wars. That mustn't happen with offshore wind. The people of Scotland must benefit, not just multinationals. As Norway has shown what should be done with oil and gas, Denmark's showing what can be done with offshore wind. It's taking a 20% stake in every new offshore wind development. This isn't North Korea, but a European democracy, nor has it seen investors flee, also showing that public ownership needn't just be a state energy company operating sites, desirable as that is, but can be through actions such as this, ensuring that people and nation gain from their natural resource, benefiting the many, not exploitation by the few. On that point. By all means.
Commend the honourable gentleman for bringing this forward and for bringing it such a subject matter. The private sector will invest some £60.8 billion across the UK over the next 5 years in developing and operating offshore wind projects. Does the honourable member agree, and perhaps I think for his talking he does, that whether investment is public or private, all devolved nations of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland must benefit from any potential funding, and that by doing so it will ensure a boost in jobs and an increase in sustainability in the renewable energy sector for everyone?
Well, of course, it should benefit our people, and it's not simply by a state energy company, desirable as I said that is. It has to be by the private sector. But as Denmark and Norway have shown, and as indeed I'll go on to say, a state can take a share and state companies can be involved. Because that's what should be happening here. But the UK government remains wedded to a privatisation route which has created a dysfunctional energy sector that we're all now paying for. A Scottish energy company was promised by the SNP and then shamefully abandoned. It must be delivered. But publicly owned and state companies are operating in the UK and Scottish offshore wind sector. The absurdity is that they're neither Scottish or UK, but foreign state firms operating in Scottish and UK waters, delivering profit not for governments in Edinburgh or London, but firth of these shores and with the wealth benefiting lands far from here. Let me begin by narrating the situation at the near Nagaith offshore wind farm. Despite the Gaelic name, it's located in the Firth of Forth between my own constituency and that of my colleague Neil Hanvey MP. Pillars and turbines now visible, and the energy coming ashore at Innerwick, just along from where I reside in Dunbar. All good, you'd think, but who owns it? It's operated by two state-owned companies. One is EDF, Énergie de France, the French state-owned energy company, which also happens to own Torness nuclear power station, just along the road and adjacent to where the energy comes ashore. State ownership isn't opposed, it seems, so long as it's someone else's. The other is ESB. The Electricity Supply Board is the majority publicly owned energy company of the Republic of Ireland. The Consul General in Edinburgh tells me that this investment in the Firth of Forth is that state company's largest ever investment out with Ireland. And so we have the perversity that the wealth and profits generated won't come to Edinburgh or London benefiting Scottish or UK citizens. Instead, they'll flow to Paris and Dublin, and citizens of Ireland and France will reap the benefit that nature bestowed upon us. Of course, big energy multinationals are also involved. SSE, Scottish Power, though in fact owned by Iberdrola from Spain, and BP amongst many others. But the state-owned firms from other lands are also there, and many significantly bigger than the Irish Electricity Supply Board. No denigration intended on them, who've done well to provide for their people. It's a lesson that Scotland must learn, as in so many other aspects, our Irish cousins, blessed with less, have delivered so much more. Neart na Gaith isn't alone in this charade of a government opposed to state-owned energy companies allowing foreign state-owned energy companies to profit and perhaps even plunder with abandon. It's a dereliction of duty, and the price is paid not just in the loss of profits, but the scandalously high prices paid by struggling families trying to power their homes, many living where they can see the turbines off their shores or in the lee of those that operate on the land. Energy-rich Scotland, fuel-poor Scots indeed. It's not just France and Ireland receiving a warm welcome, despite government political antipathy to a nationalised energy sector. Research from the House of Commons Library has disclosed that in UK offshore waters, the state-controlled Danish company Ørsted and the Norwegian state operator Equinor own the largest share of UK offshore wind at 20.4% and 9.2% respectively. UK public entities own 0.03%. By all means.
And I wish to congratulate the member of East Lothian for securing this debate. Now, I want to make 2 points, and then I'd like to leave a couple of questions for the Minister, please. Today's debate is very...
It's an intervention on the member, not on the Minister.
Okay, well,
so you have to keep it short as well.
I think you'd agree that today's debate is timely, following the confirmation last week that there were no bids for new offshore wind development in the latest auction round, which means that the government is criminally behind the curve in reaching 50 gigawatts of offshore wind power generation by 2023, and that's resulted in delays of the Erebus wind farm in my own country of Wales. So the first point, and I'd like to see if you'd agree with this, is that last week's announcement demonstrated...
With the member, I'm sorry, you'll have to sit down. Just sit down, please. It's asking a question of the member. It's not a small speech. It has to be very short. The debate is only for half an hour. Okay. So it's not a way of having an alternative method of speech. It's got to be a question.
Okay. So in terms of the future of wind energy and renewable energy in our country of Wales, do you agree that now is the time that the Crown Estate and the administration of the Crown Estate is devolved to Wales as it is in Scotland, so that we can disperse the monies as we think fit?
Well, I think where Scotland goes, Wales should follow. I think it's remiss that Wales doesn't have control over the money coming from Crown Estates, and I would certainly hope that Wales would follow Scotland, as indeed the UK should, in the establishment of a state energy company. But the point is well made and correct. I'm concentrating on Scottish waters, where the Scottish Government's ScotWind auction sold offshore wind farms at absurdly low prices, compounding the perversity of failing to deliver the state energy company. Yet Scotland's offshore wind resource has 6 state energy companies operating within it. Along the A1 from Innerwick and Kickenzie in my East Lothian constituency, energies to land from the Inchcape wind farm, again in the Firth of Forth. It's owned by Red Rock Power. That company is a European subsidiary of SDIC Power from Beijing. SDIC Power Holdings Company Limited is a listed company on the Shanghai Stock Exchange, but a state-controlled enterprise with the government holding over 49% of shares. Not just public ownership, but communism is frowned upon by this government. But it's fine for a state-owned company from communist China to benefit from Scotland's offshore resource. You couldn't make it up. But there's 3 more. Further north, Aberdeen offshore wind farm off the Aberdeenshire coast sees 58 turbines turning and owned by Vattenfall, generating wealth for the Swedish people, as Vattenfall's 100% owned by the Swedish state, showing that not just communist countries, but even ones with conservative governments benefit in state ownership. Sited further north of Peterhead's Highwind, a development where Masdar hold a 25% stake with 75% held by Equinor. As stated, Equinor is a Norwegian state energy company and benefiting its people through the gas and oil resource in Norwegian waters. but adding to that through expansion into Scotland's offshore wind. It again is a joint enterprise, seeing two state-owned companies cooperating to exploit Scotland's natural resource. Masdar, also known as the Abu Dhabi Future Energy Company, is a UAE government-owned company, securing Abu Dhabi's future, not Scotland's. So in those fields, some already operating with others being developed, we have the absurdity of foreign state ownership of Scotland's natural resource. And it's costing us. The organisation Commonwealth, in their paper, Power to the People, the case for a publicly owned generation company, noted that in 2021, our energy bills, combined with contracts for difference payments, contributed $2.56 billion in payments to offshore wind generators owned by foreign state entities. Meanwhile, we're told ownership doesn't matter, though it matters to the governments of Sweden, Norway, France, Ireland, China and the UAE. They seem to see the benefit in not just managing their own, but our natural resource. Why? Because it underpins energy security, provides affordable energy for households and businesses, supports a just transition from fossil fuel to renewables, and allows for investment in technologies, all of which help hard-pressed households, boost indigenous business, and create a more vibrant and competitive economy. It needn't just be outright ownership, welcome though that would be, but as Denmark shows, a stake can be taken, allowing the nation and its people to benefit and prosper from their natural bounty. It's not just a slippage of profits and wealth to foreign shores, but loss of control and influence over your natural resource. The evidence is that we're losing out in more ways than simply the profit. Scotland's losing the turbine manufacturing, a few to be built at Nigg. Meanwhile, hundreds are commissioned, orders are going elsewhere. Yards such as Arnish and Bifab lie empty, even when proximate to the site. Not one turbine for a fourth field will be constructed in Scotland. Assembly is a poor substitute for manufacture, seeing lower profit and requiring less skilled labour. Every firth in Scotland should be manufacturing turbines and expanding to meet growing need. Yet other than at Nigg, they lie idle, and our folk face unemployment, and our land a loss of skills. Benefits from the supply chain's a mantra from the UK government, shamefully echoed by their Scottish counterparts, but it isn't borne out in practice. In my East Lothian constituency, where the turbines offshore are visible and the horizon will change irrevocably, there's no work being generated. What should benefit current and future generations is seeing folk unable to heat their homes and youngsters struggling to access skilled employment. Local businesses haven't benefited, and new businesses in the sector aren't being created, either dealing with the offshore work or providing onshore opportunities through long-duration battery storage or hydrogen production. Let's look at one of those sites owned by foreign state companies to confirm that. Near Nagaith, owned by EDF from France and ESB from Ireland, is seeing the work likewise go elsewhere. The turbines are being produced at Siemens in Humberside, albeit assembled in Dundee, with the foundations laid by Saipem from Italy. They're being taken out to the field by Fred Olsen Renewables, and the cabling is being done by DEME Offshore from Belgium. Where's the contracts for Scottish businesses and the work for local folk? There should be a Scottish state energy company, and it should be both operating and taking a share in all fields being developed. Other nations do it, and as I've shown, are doing it in our waters. Denmark, with both its company and its public stake, is showing what can be done, just as Norway showed what can be achieved with an oil and gas bounty. Scotland has lost out on the former, but must not do so with the latter. The bounty from the energy off our shores must benefit our people, not just corporations or even state companies from other lands. The great Scottish comedian Billy Connolly penned a song, "Oh Sergeant, Where's Mine?" describing the plight of a soldier with life-changing wounds, reflecting on the prospectus the recruiting sergeant had first given him. Lying in his hospital bed, he says, "Oh Sergeant, is this the adventure you meant when I put my name down on the line? All that talk of computers and sunshine and skis. Well, I'm asking you, Sergeant, where's mine? Well, all I'm asking you, Minister, where's ours? All that talk of the Saudi Arabia of wind and the work and the jobs, where are they? And when other nations, whether Ireland or France, Denmark, Sweden or Norway, China, have a share of our natural bounty, oh, Minister, where's ours? I conclude by asking the Minister to confirm that his government will neither oppose a state energy company nor Scotland seeking to take a share in its natural wealth. The absurdity of an energy-rich Scotland, yet full poor Scots, must end. We demand a share and a stake in our natural bounty. Thank you.
Thank you. Minister.
Thank you, Mr Dowd. And it's a pleasure to serve